the elements and principles of design that we talked about last month, if you can start to bring these into your work, you can start to give your imagery a backbone and a larger meaning that we all respond to. So it's okay. Turn your mic off if it's mute your mic if it's causing problems. The principles are the design principles are bigger than the subject of your picture. They're more important. They are principles of expression, of communication. Scientists would say they're almost like principles of life itself. Things like dominance, variety. These are basic means of communication, and they're recognized all over the world. And they're recognized by human beings at just about every age group at some level. Sometimes they're recognized unconsciously, but they're there. So your picture, we want our pictures to become less about the local subject and the clever idea or the really well done visual character, and more about this dance of the elements of art, elements of design, and our perceptions of them. We call them elements because they're elemental, right? And they're the tools, they're the only tools we've got in our kit. And the principles are the techniques and the combinations of techniques we learn to use when we're working with them. And as humans, we see design all around us. And this was from a walk I was taking this photo the other night, and I could take my little viewfinder if I wanted to and probably find even a better composition, but it's full of design right now. It's got all the elements in there, and the elements are these physical attributes. It's so basic and so simple and so concrete. They're perceptual, but they're also they're also the physical world. And so we've got shapes. I'm looking at the image. We've got shapes, we got sizes, we've got lines, all kinds of lines. We've got texture, color, value. You see it all. And the reason why the principles of design, balance, unity, contrast, harmony, dominance, why they're so important is because this is nature's palette. This is what nature does. This is how nature kind of expresses itself to us as human beings. And so we respond to a beautiful photograph, a beautiful sunset, because it has these design principles at play. It's the elements, the very physical pieces of things that are in front of us, and how the principles are working the elements. And it's really interesting, and it's really not so much about how you draw things, how facile you are with the brush or the pen or the tablet. It's really about these bigger things that are sort of outside you. You're just using the pieces as your raw materials and the principles. Hard to put into words, and lots of people have different ways of expressing what I'm trying to express here. But if you isolate the elements, notice that there are polarities in the attributes of the element. The potential of the expression goes from one extreme to another. Okay, so let's isolate a few of the. Oh, there's Plato's verbal definition of design that he came up with a couple thousand years ago, and then there's the mathematical. We talked about this last month. That's the mathematical expression of that, which is the phi or the golden ratio, golden number. Okay, so when I'm talking about the different elements, the line, the polarities, the extreme, a line could be, and each element can have all kinds of different polarities in there. But let's just take the first one. It's a big, thick, broad line, but it can also attenuate and go all the way down to a tiny little wispy line, and just fade out to dots or fade out to a line that's so skinny we can't even see it. You can put it on a little, like an instruments sliding scale here, and say, okay, so it ranges the attribute of this line, the extreme, it goes from really, really dark and thick to tiny, tiny, skinny and hard to see. That's one example of a polarity in the physical attribute of a line. Another one might be, for line, would be maybe angular and straight, but it can range all the way from angular to the other extreme, which is all curves. Shape could be something as simple as the shape of the positive space versus the polarity there would be the negative space. Or another kind of polarity would be round and square, curved or angular, amorphous or hard and concrete, hard edged. It's probably, there's all kinds of different polarities in the attribute of shape. Size is a simple one. So there's my scribble of the sun, and this is really too big to be a planet, this little thing, but there's a planet. So that's an example of big and small. Color could be muted bright colors versus dulled color, warm versus cool. That's the range.
8443 Cancer Dot.
Direction, well, you see direction, it can go all the way from horizontal to vertical to in between. Now the question becomes, when you're applying the golden section, how your picture should have both. Your picture needs both. It needs unity plus diversity. So it needs the one dominant line. You want a dominant, you want to find a dominant characteristic of each element you're using. But also in the picture, you want to include the opposite of whatever polarity scale you were using. And where we get into trouble as designers is when we have an equal mix of one version of one extreme of the end of the scale and the other end, and the opposite extreme. 50-50 mixes are really bad. This is where we get into trouble. And the golden section, the golden ratio, says how much thick line versus how much tiny attenuated skinny line. Well, the 0.62, or in our, we can round it down, we can dumb it down because we're low-tech artists. 0.6. 0.6 should be one extreme or the other, so you don't have a 50-50 balance. With shape, you don't want half of the space to be negative and half of the space to be positive. You want, it needs to, positive space needs to dominate, or negative space. And the dominant, the positive space, if it's dominant, it needs to be around 60% is a real good measure of proportion there. And the same applies to all of these other attributes. Any questions about that? I won't belabor it any more than I already have. It's a sliding scale. So in painting, you talk about high key paintings and low key paintings. I'm I'm a little dyslexic here, but but I forget which one is the high key or which is the low key. But let's say the low key is the darker value. The painting is predominantly a low key or a darker value painting. It'll have some light in it, but not very much, and so it has a kind of a dark cast. Well, that is observing and obeying the idea of dominance. And the idea of the golden section. Dominance is the first principle of design, right? So, okay. Let's see if I missed anything here. Okay, now if I pull this up, can you see this screen of all the images okay? All the tiny images? I'm just going to pick out.
Yeah.
Okay, you can see that. This is from a book by Dan Burt, who's a Texas watercolor painter. The book is called You Can Paint Vibrant Watercolors. And he tries to give some examples of good examples of using line in accordance with the design principles the right way. He talks about these things a little differently than what I've just said. Everybody has a different way of treating this and expressing this, but his ideas are real sound. And so he says these are good examples of line because they're showing, you know, there's a kind of line that dominates. There's both kinds of lines in both images, but in both of them, one kind of line is dominant over the other. In this case, curved versus straight. These are bad examples of design, of line used. You see there's hardly any of the opposite, and the top one is all curves. The bottom one is all straight lines. So they're not being mixed up. And they're all kind of the same. Let's see what this one was. This was value, which is a design element, right? This is good because there's this one is an example of the low key painting with the predominant darks, but it still has bits of light in it. And this is the bright light value is high key. But the mid-tone dominates over the white, the light. And if you're doing a picture with one value, it's the proportion of the one value over the other end of the extreme in your picture should be that 60-40 roughly relationship. So he says, this is a bad use of value. I'm looking at the bottom picture. See how the dark, medium, and light values are equal with no dominance? And they are. Look at the medium value shapes are all pretty much the same shapes. And it just keeps repeating over and over again. You get the idea. Here's this bad example. All hues are equal. That's bad use of color because none of them is taking a 60%, 62% superior position, right? No leadership there. Texture. So equal measures of things are not good. Asymmetry is kind of the corollary of good design. It's that golden section principle at work. what were these sizes and the design element of size. These two on the left here are really good examples because all the sizes are quite different from each other. I mean, some of them are kind of close, but basically not so much. And the shapes are really different too. Even the tiny little design shapes in here in the top one, they're all different. And their sizes are different. Here, though, on the right, the bad examples, they're just deadeningly the same. Too much repetition. Even this lower one here, there's 4 images of about the same size, and then these interior ones, these smaller ones, they're all about the same size, and so there's no, it's not askew. It's not symmetrical. I mean, it is symmetrical, and it's unpleasant. Same thing with shape. Direction. Clearly, we see the direction in this is the dominant direction is this oblique, this slant, diagonal. And even the smaller shapes are also, they're also diagonals, not quite the same angle, but they're still diagonal. And so it's just, so dominant direction diagonal or oblique, and here it's horizontal. Direction is a real important design element for picture book illustration, right? Because you're moving laterally across a 2-page spread, and the reader is following along and following the character in the pictures. Here, the directions are too much alike. Everything has equal placement. It's in too conveniently in thirds, horizontal, vertical, and diagonal. Okay, I think you've kind of got the idea. There's all kinds of references out there about, and I will put up a list of references on the exercises page where the replay will be, and you can see some of my favorite references for these topics. But I think you got the idea. So let me go back. Stop screen sharing for a second. Check the wall. Any questions? Were you guys following the slide screens? Okay. I'll have to.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so good. Let's go look at your pieces. Okay, Anne, there's the piece. There it is. Can you see it?
Yeah.
It's on the screen.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I can hear you great.
Good.
What design element and principle do you want to cue this with? What were you thinking of?
I haven't gotten far enough with either one of these sketches, but I was trying to do a dramatic night scene, so I haven't gotten the light into it yet. So I was going to get into like the darks versus where the illumination comes down, but I didn't get that far. But what I was working with was, and I found it very difficult because I put in 2 sketches. The nets on the balloon and the sandbags. I mean, I'm putting in also what I am working on with my other book, as opposed to necessarily doing homework?
No, this is your homework. You're applying the ideas to the sketches for your book.
Yeah.
So that's
I
great.
think I've been trying to do that all along. And I'm glad you're doing this, because I think it was the last session you had examples, a couple of examples of black and white sketches done in regular, more fine arts media. And it interested me because in the past, when I was more interested in looking at children's publishing, it seemed like when I talked to agents, and this happened recently, I think with one of the agents that you had very recently, the criticism was that, and that we're talking about the more finished work I did, that it looked too much like a sketch. I hadn't moved into the world of illustration yet.
The world of painting, yeah.
Well, I never wanted to go into the world of painting for this, because I've been doing it I have done it, but in painting, but this particular was in charcoal.
So let's say sketching in a painterly way, drawing in charcoal in a painterly way.
And they're much more finished than this sketch. But anyway, it didn't have, when I develop Emily, she is more cartoony, but I'm trying to work on this straddling a more fine arts drawing, even though it may have a more cartoony quality.
Yeah, you're doing it. I think you're succeeding in that. You're accomplishing that.
But I'm not sure that I don't know if there's because I don't know enough yet about editors and publishers, but certainly when agents looked a couple of times, they said, "Oh, it's a sketch. It's not finished." So,
okay. So,
yeah.
So I haven't seen a lot of your charcoal work, and so they're giving you professional feedback, and so they're feeling like they would like to see something. They would want to convince an editor that you're able to bring something to a final piece, final art, and we've seen some of your final art pieces before,
right.
and so I would give them a little more of that, and particularly in your portfolio. You really do want to have final pieces. I think it's going to help you to start looking at some of the painting discussions and design, and obviously the design discussion is part of that, but start to think of your work as painting, even though you're using a drawing medium like charcoal. And what would you, I'd be interested to see how you bring this. Maybe for next time you should just bring this to as much of final as you think the medium will bear. So let us see, no pun intended there, but let us see a final art, a version of this in final art as a painting. And what you're using these design elements and principles for, this diagnostic of the design principles, is this is how you evaluate a painting. So you can use the same evaluation for your charcoal work and your drawings as you can with your paintings.
Right.
What
I wanted to try and do was take some of the older charcoal drawings that are somewhat finished, but I haven't gotten this far, and actually make Emily Bones 3D.
Okay, model her in 3D.
Model her, yeah.
Yeah, and then if you, to the extent that you can incorporate the design principles, dominance, unity, contrast, harmony, balance, gradation, and some form of repetition, not duplication, but repetition with variation. You repeat something, but it's like an echoed theme, but it can't be the same shape, size, color, texture. It's got to be different. If you can start to incorporate those and bring that dance into your modeling and your more finished renderings, the agents will stop making those comments about how it's just a sketch, it's not a painting.
Mhm.
So I think
I think I did it, and I'm still. That's why.
you're doing it here. Yeah, you sure are. Absolutely. I should have
I
said that
meant
first.
more, and I mean, I still think these are very, very, very sketchy. But I'm talking about other stuff I've shown before where I did finish it. I mean, again, in the end, I think it's very subjective because I've had people say, "Oh, it's wonderful and it looks very finished," and then other people who just say, "No, it isn't."
Well,
So,
these are two different scenes here. Are they? They're two
I
variations on the same
they're
scene?
variations of the same one because this is the same story with Emily Bones and the inflatable panda, and I wanted to add. I'm changing the storyline, and so I'm opening it with the idea that he's gigantic, but it's unsettling because he's big, nervous, and covered up with nets and sandbags, and not what she expected would be. I mean, because then I have all the other pictures finished where he's bouncing around and he's up and vertical.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was playing with this idea of having. I actually want to do more with the city and the street, and I had done some sketches of their sweepers and all the workers who get the street ready.
Sure.
But then what I really liked was I liked the idea of the sandbags and the nets, and I haven't got. I mean, he's not rubbery in these sketches.
Well,
Yeah.
it's you're off to a really, really good start with this, and you certainly are applying design to the shape of the pant. I mean, we've got dominance going. We've got a great expressive line, different kinds of lines you're using. Now all you need to do is impose a value pattern on both of these that you're confident in and that read well and clearly, and you're there, and the agents won't be making those comments anymore. So I don't think.
As confident as you are, but
Yeah, no, and so you know how we do the value, we impose the value pattern. We do a little sketch about 2 by 3 inch or something, and just quickly figure out how you're going to play your lights, midtones, and darks with each other, and you're going to have a focal point where the darkest dark is going to bump up against the lightest light. You got to force that, and give us a coherent, unified value pattern, which will be a way of imposing an abstract structure to your painting and give it a backbone that has universal meaning because you're using design principles, and everybody around the world will respond to it because you're holding yourself to design principles. You've already got a real cute scene, and you've got a great sense of place, and it's just, and now you just go to those. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, depending on who you talk to. Principles of design. Just bring those in. Bring that abstraction into your very local scene.
okay.
Let us see it next. Can you show it to us next time? One of these, pick one to finish.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
Just one quick thing. Which one do you like seeing his eyes more?
We haven't seen
a preference?
Well, I would like to see them both. I would like to see both versions of these as part of your dummy. I don't think you have to pick one or the other because she's not looking out of a window. Oh, yes, she is. Well, right now, I like, my preference is this second one, the one I've got up now, because of the strong diagonal in your composition, and he's bigger, so he's more dominant, and she's smaller, and so I like the contrast,
Okay.
and I like the looking down on the subject. It's real interesting, and you're pulling it off. And so that shows skill with perspective. So I think this would make the strongest portfolio piece or dummy piece.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. Thanks for sharing all of that with us and your thoughts with us. Let's go to this one. And Catherine is watching on the text. So I know you're there, Catherine. And you slapped some text up there since I've seen you last. Very good. I was going to say, that's a good place for text to go, right? That blue wall up there. There's so much blue wall. Catherine, I'm going to check the screen to see what, and you type in what design element or principle you were focusing on here. We'll keep this tailored to the lessons, the design lesson. So let me go up here and see what you're saying. Oh, Ann, you're getting a lot of really nice comments in the text chat. If you haven't checked it, about your pandas, lots of thoughts from people.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so as we're waiting for Catherine's comments about what design elements she was thinking about, I would like to say the shapes, at least 3 of the characters, are about the same. They're the same size. So the size, the element of size isn't being quite treated with the principles of design, which is contrast, right? Or contrast is one of the important ones, and very important with shape. So the shapes are, and everybody kind of has their arms sticking out the same way. So that's a repeat that I bet you could make even more interesting by changing. They're all being posed the same way. This is a
so she says,
oh yeah, thanks, Kathy.
She says she's trying to focus on composition and the rule of thirds, taking into account the previous comments from other critiques.
Great. Yeah, and she's done that. She's observed the rule of thirds, and the placement of Goldilocks is perfect because we go right to her. We see her. And it's got value contrast too. So see the shadow on the backboard of the bed and bright little Goldilocks with her face all full lit and her golden blonde locks. And we've got the most light and dark contrast is right around her. The dark is around her, pops her out, and she is about 0.62% of the way across. And that really works nicely. So yeah, the rule of thirds or the golden section, you are observing that. It's, what's fun is you've got 2 contrasts. You've got the dark paw of the bear in the foreground. He's out of focus, but there's the dark against the light of the quilt, and then you reverse it with the light Goldilocks against the dark backboard, and that puts we don't look much further than right here, and the rest of the composition is just there for support, sort of takes second stage. So the repetition of the duplicate shapes of the 2 bears and Goldilocks is something that I think you would, if you were reshooting this, you could work with that. I don't know how you do it. Maybe crafting a bigger bear, have the mama a little bit smaller than the papa, have a hierarchy of sizes, or pull your camera up closer to get a bigger image of the close-up figure. The other repeated shape that I see is the bed and the dresser. They're like rectangles, and they're pretty much the same. So I would want, if I was adhering to design principles, I'd want the dresser to be a smaller piece of furniture compared to the bed. Those kinds of things. What else is Catherine saying? She says, I think I need to bring Pop. Okay, so she's saying the same thing Catherine is, and closer to camera, he's actually bigger, taller than everybody else. Yeah, huh? Yeah, all the arms up was a suggestion in the last critique. I didn't remember that, but that's interesting. Well, that just shows to go that you can't listen to everybody and do what we all say. I think the arms up is really okay in a way. I think it's more the shapes of the bears that are so identical. I think that's what's bothering me more on that one, because their hands aren't exactly alike. Somebody actually said to have them all up like that the same way. Now this is fun. The little Noah's Ark animals that are there on the dresser. That's a great example of a size differentiation. They're little figures and little characters, just like the bears, but they're smaller. And the teddy bear is yet another size, right? So you've got some good. You do have some good size variety in there. It's just that our main characters are all pretty much the same, taking up the same kind of space. Anything else, Catherine? No, I don't think it's too bright. She's asking if she says she did try to light it a little more starkly, dramatically this time. And I like it. I like the lighting on this one, and I like the shadows in it too. And I like the fact that you've changed the color of the wall. You've got it grading from this blue to the white. I think that works. You've got more, seems to me like you've got nicer things happening with shadows, lights, and darks and values in this one. It's got a nice diagonal there too with the quilt. So adds a bit of directional sense to it, the image. With all those horizontals, you've got this nice diagonal in there too. Okay, we're going to go on to Kathy's piece. Kathy, is this you?
Yeah, that's mine.
Yeah. What design elements were you grappling with here?
I was working on trying to get direction into my pieces, since that's
Great.
not what I'm most familiar with.
Okay. You definitely did it. There's a lot of directionality here.
Mom, I don't have stripes.
There's one question I've got, Kathy, is, the rainbow is back behind them, and you've got all these characters looking forward and reacting to something, reacting, of course, to the land that they're on. So they all seem to be looking at the same thing, and it's not the rainbow, because the rainbow's to their back. So this is sort of a direct, maybe we could put this under direction. Could you add another figure or two where some people are looking maybe at the rainbow with their backs to us, so that we get a sense of the rainbow back there, not to the right, and then maybe some of these faces could be, and I'm not saying you have to redo this, but in a piece like this, if you ever do something kind of similar, have some of their faces looking, because they're rejoicing at being out of the boat and off the water, they'd be looking everywhere, and instead you've got them all kind of localized, looking like there's something right in front of Noah, up above and to the front of Noah. There's a directional, and yet the other figure's pointing at the rainbow back there. So there's a kind of a maybe some more figures in there that are looking at different things to sort of because it's this little group of them in the bottom right corner. It's so strong, and they all are kind of looking in the same direction. They're looking out toward us, and it seems to be in conflict with the rainbow somehow. Is that? And you could fix it with maybe just add one character to look somewhere else, or just to sort of deflect the.
These are the characters in the story.
Those are all the characters in the story.
Yeah. There's at this point there's supposed to be nobody else on Earth.
It's a tiny thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now so you can discredit everything I just said. Now would you have text up there in the white sky? Is that
Yes.
what all that white sky is for? Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Good, because that'll bring it down and create more of a sense of the horizontal, which will even add to your directional horizontal sense. But by the text block, we'll crop it and make it even nice. It's a beautiful illustration.
I thought I was getting away with the whole the rainbow is behind them because their eyes were closed. So maybe they saw it and then they all
turned around and looked out at us.
Yeah.
Camera.
Just for the sake of presentation, they're like, hooray!
They were doing the Facebook
Yeah.
photo, a selfie in front of the rainbow. Yeah, directional things are tricky, but even if you had a couple of the animals looking out at the rainbow or looking someplace, but you do have a little of that, but looking toward the back in addition to looking out toward us. But it's charming. I mean, if I was an art director or an editor, I'd be happy to put this in a book. Was it for a book?
Yes, it is.
What you want to tell us what book so we can put it on shopping list?
It's going to be a self-published book that I'm working with an author on. And it's just a group of Old Testament stories.
Wonderful. You're going to tell us all. You're going to announce it when it's out, right? So tell us how to get it.
Yeah.
We'll help.
It's going to be called God's Old Testament Stories for Children of All Ages.
Neat. Wonderful.
Yep.
Yeah, this is very kid friendly, and it's also not a trite telling of the Noah's Ark. I mean, it's a fresh image for the Noah's Ark story.
Thank you.
Well done. Okay, so Kathy was very conscious of direction in this one, and she's got this nice horizontal here with the figures. And you do have a sense of everybody coming out of the ark and moving from left to right. It's great. Judith. Is Judith here tonight? Are you there, Judith?
I see her reply yes, back at the beginning.
Oh, good. Okay, great. What design elements were you and principles were you thinking about with this one? This picture, this sketch reminds me of Henri Rousseau, who painted the zoo in Paris and put animals into jungles that he never actually visited in his real life. And there's a kind of a fun turn of the century quality about this. This looks like it's right out of Henri Rousseau's era. I guess he was in the early 1900s painting. Well, I see direction because they're all lined up and the cages are all lined up. So there's this left to right thing happening, and there's this interaction here between the boy and the tiger. They seem to be making friends. Apart from the design discussion, the proportions of the figures are little. The boy looks so big compared to the other characters, including this adult painter here, who looks like he's trying to warn the boy away from the tiger cage. But is there a reason why you made the boy so huge compared to the others? And I would get the viewfinder out, your little homemade viewfinder, and I would run it over this picture and see if there's a way you could come in or even go back further out with it to try to, I don't have a real sense of frame on this picture. It's a perfect square, and that could have been the photo or the upload. And you've got the figures down here at the bottom so close to the corners of the picture that it feels they're not quite sitting in the space in a comfortable way that lets our eye kind of go in and out of everybody. So if you had drawn a frame on your picture, on your page, your sheet, and let us see the sheet with the border, and then you place your figures inside with a little breathing space around the edges and not place them so much in corners. See how symmetrical that is with him over here in this corner and her over, I don't know if you can see my cursor, and her over here, and then there's a center line right here at the edge of his canvas. You've created a central axis, and you've sort of and you've reinforced it with this bar, and so suddenly you've divided the picture space in equal halves. So the placements are a little symmetrical, and that might have been by design.
She said she's trying to see if this fits with the golden ratio. So I think there are elements that are, but
Yes.
I am seeing your center lines.
Yeah. Okay.
There's some dominant shapes that are a little too
Yeah.
dividing in half instead of dividing in
half.
thirds.
Yeah, because the tiger's back paw and this bar and the canvas, they line up a little too conveniently as a vertical right in the middle. But I do see that your center of interest, which is the boy interaction with the tiger and the little girl are looking on, that is about 0.62 way, or it's right on that intersection, right on that third cross section. And going from top to bottom, the animals are in a nice 0.6 of the way down, or 0.6 of the way up rather. They're on a golden ratio relationship.
She also said that, I guess this was in response to your question about the size of the boy. Yes, to emphasize his teasing the tiger.
Okay. He is teasing the tiger. Teasing the tiger?
That's what he said? That's
He's
what she
tormenting. Yeah, it almost looks like he's got a pair of scissors or something in his hand, and he's giving the tiger a haircut or something. I don't know, as I close up on it. Well, it's a charming scene. I really like this guy over here in the tiger. If I would take my viewfinder and I would zoom right in on this guy and make an image out of this guy and turn him into a birthday card or his own character in his own graphic novel or something. He's real cute. And the artists are real cute. The whole idea of the kid sitting there drawing, and then this little girl drawing a cute little kitty cat version of the tiger is really, really fun. But when you have a picture like this and you're not quite sure if you're placing things the right way, it does help sometimes to make a photocopy of your sketch, cut out the pieces, and try them in different configurations. That's what people have been using tracing paper for hundreds of years, I guess. They move the pieces around until they find the placement that feels right. Right now, there's something that feels a little uncomfortable about the placement of the figures, and it seems to reinforce the fact that these are all these shapes are about the same size. So, which we don't want. We want to stagger and be creative and have a lot of variety in that. So,
something else that.
Go ahead, Kathy.
I was thinking something else that might help with there's the difficulty with the proportions and the sizing issues that are going on is if she put everything on an angle, like if we were looking like it was down the hall of the zoo, and so instead of like looking
the front
at
on
the cage as it's like the stage, if you have looking.
Yeah, that's a good point.
then you
It's-
could have the scene closer up, and then maybe the artists behind
Yes.
seeing.
Yes. And you'd have, yeah, like you just said, you'd have diagonals that would impose natural diagonals in your composition too, which are always interesting because you're looking at a plane that's receding from you a little bit. As it is, the wall of the cages is absolutely parallel us, and so the artists are all then have to be parallel. Well, they don't have to be parallel, but you've lined them up so they're all parallel. So it is a very symmetrical kind of formal placement that it missed an opportunity for drama and
Because if
dynamic.
he's teasing the tiger, then it's not a stable scene, so there shouldn't be so many horizontals.
Yeah,
That's like
yeah,
his life is in danger.
His life is in danger. What's all this symmetry about? Why are they seem concerned and yet not? So if you could place, you could place the one girl way over here, and this little girl over here, a little closer to us, stagger them, and yeah, there's too much formality here for it to be a truly dangerous scene. I swear those are scissors in his hand. He's just, what a bully, what a meanie. Catherine, is there anything you want to share about this picture with us additionally?
Or Judith?
I'm sorry, Judith. Judith. Yeah, I'm sorry. I know Judith. I do congratulate you on the golden section placement of the mean bully boy and the tiger, and this tiger too on the vertical. Now remember, when we're talking about shape, we're also talking about the negative spaces. So as you're placing your little elements of construction paper on white paper or tracing paper, you're also designing the negative space too. So all this blank wall stuff in the floor and the cage bars, you're conveying shape, and you don't want to be boring with that either. So you got to keep both dimensions moving, a flux, and asymmetrical, not repeating. Tricky. Okay, I'm going to assume Judith has nothing.
Oh, she says, no, thank you. This was so helpful. He really is poking his paintbrush into the cage. Yikes.
Paintbrush, yikes, no scissors. Well, that makes sense. That's what he would be poking into the cage. So that's really good. That's really logical. Yeah, I wasn't seeing a paintbrush, but that's cute. Yeah, so use proportion, heads as units of measurement to make sure all your kids' proportions are pretty much the same depending on their age. These kids might be different ages, but he looks almost like a different, like he hopped out of a different picture and walked into this one. He's so much bigger than the other kids, and he's further back than the other kids too. So this would be really cute painted if you can get it. If you can get it, get your placements and your sizes a little more irregular, a little more in keeping with the design principles. It'd be fun to see you paint this next month when we go into watercolor. Judith, congratulations on these cute characters and the cute animals too. Okay, Tina's picture. She was being very conscious of design, she said, when she was working on this. You guys want to give Tina some feedback in the comments, text chat? Yeah, I think this is an excellent example of obeying the 2/3, the rule of 2/3, or the rule of the golden section. So he's, she's got him angled with his gesture. He is over so that our center of interest is not right in the middle of the picture, but just a little more than half of the way across. Do we see his pelvis and his spinal column? So he's beautifully, and she's given us two very different placements. This leg is so much different than this leg. This side of the shape is different than this side of the shape. This little cutaway negative space in here is different than this one. Everything, she's created all these different spaces, none of them alike in her placement of the figure. She was thinking about all that. And the ground, the horizon line is asymmetrical. It's kind of following the rule of thirds, a little more than, well, little bit more than halfway across is where she has her horizon line, which is good. The path that the girl, the fairy is on, is not in the center of the picture, but it's off. It's obeying the golden section. It cuts at the horizon right at the golden section, one of the golden sections in the composition. It also has a real nice variety of lights, darks, midtones.
Yeah, this could probably go into color at this point if she was doing color.
If she's just laying color right over it. Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to decide whether it's predominantly a dark valued painting or is it high key or low key?
This would be dark. Looks like it's nighttime, low key.
Yeah, it mostly, yeah. So she's got a real good value pattern, and she absolutely is observing her her design principle of she's using the element of value, and she's observing the design principle of dominance. It's got a dominant dark value, and it still has contrast in it. It's got a light in it too, even though it's a nighttime scene. It's got some strong lights in it, but they are absolutely overshadowed by the dark, the deep gray tones. And
there's some. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Kathy.
I was going to say there's the repetition of the shape of the hair and the mountains is kind of interesting. I think that's repetition kind of done right. Like, this is a troll that's come from the mountains, so maybe his hair is like the mountains. So it's like, that's a good way to do repetition.
A great way to do repetition. So it's repetition with variation. Yeah. All the pieces are different. They're spiky peaks, but there's not a single one alike. And the same can be said of the angles on the path, and actually the tears in his pants and his hair, like Kathy said. It's just she has really been conscious of it, and it's really paying off. If you're going to put the little fairy that close to his toes, I wonder, have you tried a sketch of him where he's absolutely got his head dropped, looking down on her? Because as it is, he's kind of he's holding his head up as if he's looking at something closer to where we are, the viewer. And we don't have a sense of him. She's clearly looking straight up into his face, but he's not looking quite down at her. So it's another directional issue. It's you might try one little sketch, Tina, of him with his head dropped, looking just down on her. We'll mostly see his hair, right? His crazy hair, and just get a sense. He's got his head dropped, looking down on her, because as it is, he's kind of he's holding his head up as if he's looking at something closer to where we are, the viewer, and we don't have a sense of. Thanks. We always sound so funny when we hear ourselves.
So there's a comment about from Maya. I think the ground could be darker. I feel like the feet and the ground are too close in value, and I think that's something that could be played with.
Interesting.
His face is also, he's got a little bit of a lighter shade on just his face. Um,
Yeah.
maybe that lighter shade could be on some parts of his body as well, kind of reflecting the light from the fairy a bit more, because the fairy is so low
Yep.
that some of the lower parts of his body would probably have light just as much as those portions of his face.
Wouldn't that be cool? That would be a real nice feature added. And even if we don't see nearly as much of his face, if it was dropped down looking at her, we could see the light on maybe the tip of his nose. But I absolutely agree with that comment, Kathy, that that she's pretty bright and she is emitting a light, and so we want to see maybe a little more of that. It doesn't have to be a lot, just a hint on his stomach and legs and pants. That would really be cool. Yeah, and around his feet, where the feet could be lighter, particularly the one that she's by, because she is illuminating it, right? She's reflecting. All that light would be reflected. So that is a very cool suggestion. But in terms of placement of the pieces, the subject, it's just been very well observed. Look at the moon. The moon is at the golden section vertically. This would make a real striking color piece. It wouldn't have a lot of color in it because it's a night scene. Wouldn't have any warm tones in it. But it's on the way to being a portfolio piece. Tina, do you have any other thoughts? Any questions?
I don't think Tina's on right now.
Okay, she's going to catch the
comment
replay.
thing.
Yeah. We have people from Germany, Italy, and Thailand in the group. So not everybody's, it's not 7 p.m. for everybody. Okay, real strong, real fun to look at. Okay, now here's what I'm going to do for Sylvia. This is Sylvia's piece, and I'm going to make a screenshot of it real fast. I've never done this on a Hangout before. See if Google can handle it. Because I have no way of flipping a PDF or rotating it.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! Yeah, so if we can make it bigger, see if I can make it. Yeah, really nice line sketches. Really nice line sketches. And Sylvia has just started the course, and she's working on her gesture studies. And she had to leave early, but yeah, she's got this is clearly a study, a line emphasis is the element, and we've, in addition to the gestures, and she's got a nice diagonal in this figure, and she's following the golden section right there where her belt is oh, maybe her arms and face is about 0.6 of the way up. The elbow's 0.6 of the way across from this side. And it's a real interesting, this would make a lovely painting, color and value in it. And there's a real sense of a dancer's pose, real effective line use. Don't know what the dark is here. It's sort of, I would crop it right out of the picture, whatever it is, or maybe make it not such a dark value that it just pulls this over. You could have a darker mid-tone or something here and another mid-tone on the other side to sort of balance it or frame her. But yeah, but sometimes we don't discover these things until we finish the whole sketch, and then we know we have to keep cropping. Yeah, and these guys are beautiful. Great sketches. Great beginning. Already a cute style happening just with these lines, simple lines. They feel anatomically right, and yet they don't feel overstudied, overthought, overlabored on. They feel very fresh and spontaneous. I think that's, any other comments on this one?
There's just a lot of, I love this. I love the repeated tall dancer pose of both images, both graceful and capture motion.
Isn't that nice? Yes.
Yeah. They have nice expression of the line.
All the way through.
Yeah.
Faces as well, the faces of the dancer as well as the flamingos. I mean, the faces are even expressive and telling us a story. These guys are really talking to each other over here. And yeah, it's really graceful. A lot of life in it. Okay. We're going to go. Over to Marge's piece. Marge, if you're here, do you want to type in what design elements and principles you were thinking about when you tackled this one, these fun kids? Were you thinking of composition for this, or was it? Were you thinking of gesture study only? And while Marge is there, while she's typing in, I'll just say that the placements seem a little formal and a little symmetrical, and the little kids' clubhouse, that exterior line pretty much divides the picture in half right there. So you might want to get your viewfinder out and zoom in on this scene and crop it. Don't worry that you're cropping out some of the landscape. Just come in. You might even have to drop out a kid or two, but just get that so that your big shapes, the stuff we can't miss seeing, is that stuff is at a golden section somewhere in the grid, and not dividing the composition into equal parts. We don't want any equal parts unless there's a real reason for it, like windows in a building or something.
It can be really hard not to put something right in the middle of your picture, though.
Yes, it can. And
it's like,
and
if she moves it one way, then something else is right in the middle. So it's like,
you've got to keep moving it around until you find a view that doesn't have that going on. The nice thing is, it doesn't mean you have to draw this over again. It just means you have to crop it differently, and it might mean cutting out a whole section of the scene. You know, just like you would do with a photo, a cropped photo that you're sending to a friend or something, or using in a layout. So we could have fun getting out our viewfinders right now and just sort of looking. I'm using my hands, and as long as I'm zooming in on the girl telling the dog to stop, and the dog and the ball and the boy in the foreground, and the girl with her head against the counting at the clubhouse. If I just crop up on those three kids and the dog, and even crop off the top of the head of the little boy, or not the top of his head, not his whole head, but just his hairline or something. I'm going in that close, and suddenly things are sort of, I don't see any symmetrical places, negative spaces or positive spaces. I see, yeah, or I could crop it over, cut out the little girl, just have the puppy dog on the far left, and have the little boy running to the right off the picture, because he looks like he's running away from the counter, so that helps the scene. So anyway, just move your viewfinder around. As it is, the kids are dividing the spaces where they're placed. They're dividing the spaces in equal parts. There's a lot of that going on here. So they're real cute. And my other thought is, just to be interesting, is there a reason there's no, we're not, is this just, it almost looks like this is a stage flat, this clubhouse, and it's like a little flat rather than an actual house, because the odds are not real high that we would be seeing it from such a point of view that we're not seeing any of the sides of that clubhouse, right? The horizon line is, our eye level is right up here at her horizon line. So we wouldn't be seeing a whole lot of the top of the house, but we would be seeing one of the, at least a portion of the sides. So it helps to have a little perspective. And we've got lessons, Marge knows we have them on 2-point perspective. It should make it pretty easy to draw that structure and put it in the space in a convincing way. The tree feels like it's in perspective. The figures feel like they're in 2-point perspective. So this doesn't need to be like a little cutout, flat shape. I don't think. And so I think cropping will fix the design, the big design issues here, though. Closing up on some of the pieces. Okay.
She just says she was trying for thirds, direction, unity, and variety and balance. And the variety of the kids' poses and the variation in size as they go into the background.
Good.
It's like those seem good. So
those seem real good. Yeah. So I'm glad she was thinking about those things, and there is a good sense of direction here. And some of that might get lost if we cropped up, but I don't think so.
She also says I was going to drop the right child. So the one
right
that's
child?
Running away.
Yeah. What do you think about that? What do you think, Kathy? Would you drop him out?
Well, he adds a lot of good direction.
Yeah.
If this is a kid's book. And that's a nice little, like, oh, where is he running to? He's running to the next page.
That's what I think too. And he's a little bit smaller than the other kids, so maybe he's younger. I think he's cute. He's awfully close to the edge, but you know, if we were cropping up really close, it wouldn't matter because we're cutting things off. So
you also don't want to crop so close to that clubhouse that it's right to the edge of the page.
Yeah, you don't want any of these lines to be close to the edge of the page and be like tangential like that. That's right. Well, there's a lot of interaction and fun stuff going. You know, part of me wants to see even more kids in this image because there's so much white space. And it could really contribute to the sense of direction. What if you had kids like back here behind the tree, much smaller, they're going this way, another kid's going this way. There was even a little bit more feeling of chaos and movement and people going in all directions. But you've got a real good start on it because all these kids are going different ways and they're angled at us in different ways, and it's making it really fun. I really like too how you got the girl in a bit of a shadow under the tree here, so you're playing with value a little bit, and that's to be encouraged. It's what'd you use, Procreate for this, or it looks like it was Looks like the values were dropped in digitally.
Catherine made a comment about the values. She would like to see a little bit more dark.
Okay.
And I don't know if those lines are black or if they're dark gray at this point.
The outlines.
Yeah.
Can't tell. They look like a pretty deep dark gray.
I think it otherwise works as a, what is it, the high value painting?
Yeah, it is. It is a high value.
Very light.
Right. And that big meadow they're playing in is getting all that light from the sky, so it's not unreasonable that it would be such a high value. And the sun appears to be right overhead because there's not a lot of long shadows. So I feel pretty comfortable about the light in the picture. And the fact that she's varied the light so that things read easily. She doesn't have a lot of things the same value. She's not repeating the same gray over and over. She's got differences. She was conscious of that.
Maybe a little bit of change between the girl that's hiding her eyes
Okay.
at the clubhouse. Her hair, her hands, and her shirt are all kind of the same color of gray.
They are. That's true.
So even though she's probably, it looks like she might be in a shadow, like there should still, like the girl behind the tree has a little bit of difference between her
She
hair and her
does.
skin.
So you're thinking just darken that girl's hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would make it even clearer. It'll also give us a nice dark. You don't have any real darks in this picture save the outline. So that would be a nice dark note. You've got dark in the dog's mouth, and you have dark over here, and that would balance it. So that way you'd have all three mid-tone lights and darks represented in the picture. It's always a good idea. And I would, since you are playing in a high key, you could, this landscape in the background here, the foliage, you could kick that lighter because, in this scene, it looks like things might get lighter going back into space rather than darker. So it's pretty much the same value as the tree, upright tree. And I think you could vary that by, I like the way you're modulating and creating some texture back there, but if you could push it all back to a little lighter value, we would have even more of a sense of distance, maybe. But really, I like the approach and the spirit of it. And the kids read, they're pretty fun. Be careful of hands to make sure, be real. You can draw cartoon hands, but don't try to stay in control with them.
She says she used Sketchbook Pro for the values.
Okay.
Did the sketch by hand, scanned it in, and then used Sketchbook.
Very good. I congratulate you on your values, Marge. That's really fun. And it's a kid-friendly scene, and it's got a lot of fun kids, and they're all different. So great. Anything else? Any other comments on this one? Okay, we're going to go on to the next. You guys are being real patient tonight, and this is Michelle's piece. And Michelle says, it was a drawing from a few years ago. She'd made a note not liking the composition. I used the viewfinder and used the information about the golden rule to get a better understanding on why this is not working so well. I made some sketches for alternative version on the last one. Yeah, great. So first of all, I was really taken by this sketch that you're not excited about, Michelle. and now she's gridded it up to see how it works with the thirds. And look how her center of interest in this scene fell right in the middle square, right in the center of the piece. So that she diagnosed that by putting a grid over it. It's probably why the sketch was bothering her. And then she was looking at some alternative ways to place the pieces. So she's got her little tic-tac-toe board in the background. She drew her frame in, which I just give her all kinds of gold stars and extra credit for, extra points. And her favorite was the blue sketch. Or is it too vertical, she asks. I don't think it's too vertical. It's a real nice job of placing the key parts in golden sections. Or at least on the rules of third, the intersections here and here. And there's our heroes are in the window of the space capsule, and they are right on an intersection. So let's just say that's about 0.62 of the way down. There they are. And 0.62 of the way across, and there they are. But because you were conscious of golden section placement on all of these, I would wager that all of these would work and turn into neat paintings.
All the thumbnails have really different feelings. So it's kind of like, what do you want the feeling of the, like some of them are more threatening and like.
Yes.
So do you want it to be a friendly space squid, or do you want it to be like, I'm just going to come and give you a hug? Like,
yes. Clearly, this one and the other, the diagonal, where he's the two ones where he's coming around the edge of the planet, are pretty menacing. Shades of
the top right one looks a little scary.
Yeah, it's
the feeling of it. It still works good as a composition, but it's just a little scary.
He's a little formidable. This sort of the War of the Worlds, H.G. Wells happening over here, but it's very effective as a composition. And our little heroes in the window, now they look a little beleaguered, or maybe they don't know what's about to hit them. Yeah, and on this one, where he's the bottom left one, this monster's alien, I guess maybe he's not a monster. He's a little more, he looks like he's trying to engage with him a little more. Yeah, I agree.
Like coy, kind of.
Coy,
smile.
flirty. Yeah, just
Yeah.
sort of, yeah. So maybe they're having a bit of a conversation. Now the problem from a narrative point of view for us doing a scene like this, where we're seeing our heroes in a window and the window is parallel the viewer, how do we have them engaging with this creature who may be, for all we know, 800 miles away on the other side of the of the planet, coming around the edge? It's hard to get them to relate to each other. However, you've done a pretty heroic job of in these sketches of getting them to sort of relate. I noticed this one on the bottom right, where the alien space eyes is clearly looking at the guys in the spaceship. So that's cute. And I don't know if it's not clear that they can see her or him yet. But any one of these would work from a design placement standpoint, Michelle. And how cute. I mean, they would all be good portfolio pieces. And I love this Gorey, like Ed Gorey, like cross-hatching. It's so effective and there's a sort of a steampunk quality to the, it's like an etching sort of historical feeling. So it feels kind of Jules Verne. And so I really, really would love to see you apply this stippled texture-y technique, ink. The value pattern in this is just great, and the sense of excitement, and there's sort of a turn of the century steampunk decorative quality about not just the spaceship but the whole composition. Looks, it's really, really neat. So yeah, so that technique with one of these, that could sell a book all by itself, a graphic novel series. So Michelle, I'm hoping you decide which one you want to go with and finish them. It did look like in the first one, like you have the donkey or the horse, he's kind of, looks like you try to have him as if he's looking at the octopus, or the space alien rather. He's looking at him, and that's just not going to work because the alien is off to the side, and sort of you got him here like he's sort of behind, a little bit behind the spaceship. So he does pretty much clearly seem to be behind the spaceship, and so there's no way that the horse could look at him, although we're always trying to make our characters look at each other in a scene like that, even when it's, and it looks like you've got the alien kind of looking at him too, but it's not going to work because they're just not placed that way. And you've cleared it up in your sketches, your thumbnails, but the tentacles of the alien are just so tangential to the outline of the spaceship, and there is a little confusion. Is he in front of the spaceship, or is he right next to it on the side of it, or is he behind it? It's not clear. So but you've fixed that in all of these. So great job, and really fun. Your notes were fun too. Thank you. Any other comments on this one?
I wonder if it's still an issue with the characters in the spaceship looking at the squid. Like, what if the characters in the spaceship were looking at each other in surprise?
Yeah.
Like, because if they can't see the squid, but maybe they knew the squid was out there, they might be scared and surprised.
Yes.
That this squid would have a nice little happy face and be looking at them.
I agree with you. I think there's not going to be a way to make it work as if you're trying to relate them to the squid. I mean, an art director will just say no. So you have them talking to each other, or sipping tea together, or looking out at us, or somewhere else, unaware of the squid, unless you give the squid a little cell phone or something, and they're talking to each other with devices. But otherwise, no, I don't think so. Great.
Yeah, if you had the characters in the spaceship seeming to be not knowing about the squid, or just finding out about the octopus squid guy, then there's some tension, and you want to turn the page and see, like, will they find out what it is? Yes,
that's right. Or if they're talking to each other in a very concerned way, the two spaceship occupants, then that kind of cues us that they know that they've gotten a glimpse of him through another window, and now they're consulting. What do we do? And that makes us want to turn the page. So it's a win-win. It's a really cool image.
You could even have like another window on the other side.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, with the tentacle streaming past it, and clearly they would have seen him by then. And now they're figuring out, what do we do? It's really fun. It suggests a whole story, a whole graphic novel series. But what you're doing with the darks and the lines and the etch, I don't know how long it took you to do it, but it makes for a very effective presentation. Yay, Michelle. Okay, so. Anything else? But that's what the thumbnails will do for you, and then applying the principles of design to the placements of things in there, it suddenly becomes this real interesting exercise, almost always bringing improvement to the initial concept. A lot of times you will do it unconsciously anyway with your gesture scribbles, but this seals the deal right here. This kind of analysis. Okay, Christine's little sketches for her story, looking great. Christine, are you here? Did you want to tell us what what design elements and principles you were thinking about when you were doing this lovely image sketch? I feel like there's a lot of design principles being observed here. There's balance, nice balance of this side of the picture with these two elements, the fairy and the house and this tree, and then the dog, the dog and the tree. They're different than this tree. The dog's a different size, and because of that staggering, you kind of remedy this business of cutting the picture in half. Picture's kind of cut in half because of the tree and the house being, but it's mostly golden section, I think. And then you've broken the symmetry completely by changing up the sizes of the figures on either side of the central axis. So, and there's the line quality in your sketches is always fun, Christine. And so what is fun is that you've got this hard, skinny line, this hard edge line that's for the gesture and the line of action, if you will, on the tree and the dog and the fairy and the grasses. But you also got another kind of line with your softer, broad, flat of your pencil going in there and giving us another kind of texture and another kind of line, soft and fuzzy, very different. Although the hard edge line, the scribble line, dominates. So you have a lot of fun stuff going on with the line. You have unity because you're using the same kind of line throughout. You've got contrast within the line because you're doing this soft, textural, broader stroke with another medium, another instrument, graphite. You've got harmony because you're doing this throughout the picture and you're relating the pieces that way. You've got balance. The way you balance the sides, but it's an informal balance. It's not a symmetrical balance. And you've got you hint at gradation because you've got this modeling going on, bit of shading going on with the tree, so you got movement from light to dark, midtones. You've got that happening, gradual change happening in your picture elements, in your line. And then you've got a repetition with variation. The trees are different from each other. The branches are different. The kind of tree is different, and so forth. So. And I really appreciate how you've drawn the frame of the picture and you're relating everything to your borders. So give you gold stickers, gold stars on this, Christine. Any comments on this? Do you have another one of these, Christine? What is that? Is that our last one? Let's see. Christine says, hi, I was playing around with the golden rule, turning it up, down, and the rule of thirds and a little bit of value. It's very rough. Yeah, but it's very effective. So, congratulations. Guys, we had a good session tonight, and you guys turned in some really fine exercises. Congratulations! I'm really pleased with how well you incorporated elements and principles of design in your sketches. If you have a website or an online portfolio, online presence of some sort for your illustrations, get them ready for Eric to look at, and I'll send out the link to the Google Drive shared folder. The Girl Illustrator Workshop video will go into the page this maybe tomorrow or Friday, at least before the end of the weekend, you will have it up. Hey, Kathy, before the end of the weekend, you'll have that to look at. If you've ordered Drawing Children for children's books, you should have a link to a separate website for those videos, but I also will have the Drawing Children series for those of you that purchase it available in your website for the course. And some of you have already been getting back with me about saying the link in the video and such on the page isn't working, or the link is broken, or anything that you're finding not quite working on the Marks and Splashes course site. I appreciate your letting me know about it, and you're doing that, so thank you. And thanks for hanging with us tonight. Kathy, thank you for being indispensable tonight.
My pleasure.
Gosh, what would we do without you? And you even turned in a piece too, and a fine one. And it's going to be in a book that we're all going to hopefully get to see before long. So we will call it a night, and the replay will be up right after this processes. So thanks, guys, and I will, Kathy, stay on with me for just a second, would you? And
Sure.
I'll end the broadcast, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.